just was interested in hearing what to say. And I was like,
You'll be happy with her. She'll absorb everything.
good.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're here today to talk about another heroic act by one of our deputies. Deputy Chris Vascellaro was driving home from his 12-hour shift, and he encountered an emergency situation on the side of the road. I'm going to go ahead and read the press release that we issued so you all can have a good idea of what happened, and then I'm going to introduce Deputy Vascellaro. On August 26, 2014, just after 6 p.m., Deputy Chris Vascellaro was returning home after working his regular 12-hour shift. As he turned onto Thrasher Avenue, he observed several people gathered around a man lying on the ground. 2 people were performing CPR on the man. Deputy Vascellaro immediately retrieved his automated external defibrillator, an AED, and he instructed one of them, Jason Dodge, in the placement of the AED. The 2 continued to perform CPR while the defibrillator conducted analysis of Walter Ward. The combined techniques of CPR and the AED were successful in returning a pulse to Mr. Ward. Walter Ward is currently in a local hospital. After Mr. Ward was turned over to EMS and transferred to the hospital, Deputy Vascellaro learned of the events that preceded his arrival on the scene. Jason Dodge stated that as he was driving on Thrasher Avenue with his stepfather, Donald Wagner, they were waved down by Suzanne Ward, who asked for assistance with her husband, Walter, who was believed to be having a heart attack. Together, Mr. Dodge and Mr. Wagner helped remove Mr. Ward from the vehicle to a prone position on the ground as instructed by the 911 operator. A second motorist and passenger saw the activity and immediately stopped and exited their vehicle and began CPR. These 2 individuals only identified themselves as retired nurses, and they left the scene upon being relieved by Deputy Vascellaro and Mr. Dodge. Sheriff Nienhuis wants the citizens of Hernando County to know that this is another example of how beneficial it is for deputies to have all of their equipment available to them when traveling to and from work. Whether they are acting as a deterrence or they are flagged down for a law enforcement or a medical emergency, the benefit to the citizens is impossible to measure. The Hernando County Sheriff's Office and Mrs. Ward would like to thank everyone who was involved in these selfless efforts to save her husband. Deputy Vascellaro. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask?
What was it like to hear her kind of reiterate what you did? I mean, you're sitting over there, you're kind of, just listening to what she described what you did, but what's it like to actually hear what you lived?
One word comes to mind, that's teamwork. Okay, this was a phenomenal example of people coming together, the community, citizens, taking time out of wherever it is that they're going to stop somebody. I can tell you, I've seen numerous examples of people, they just go by, they won't stop, and Mr. Dodge, Mr. Wagner, and the 2 nurses who fortunately left prior to being able to identify them, it was amazing what they did.
Let's get into the subject of sudden cardiac arrest, because this is what played into it. There's a lot of deaths every year from this kind of thing. What kind of differences are these portable AEDs making?
Amazing. For every minute that somebody's down, suffering from cardiac arrest, every minute that someone's down, their chances of survival decreases by about 10%. Okay, so basic CPR fundamentals are early defibrillation and early CPR, and when you can activate a defibrillator on someone that's suffering from cardiac arrest, it tremendously increases their chance of survival.
It only takes minutes, it sounds like, right? I mean, you're saying 10 minutes basically you have to save this person's life.
That's essentially nothing's written in stone, but that's the general guideline that is that for every minute that someone's suffering from cardiac arrest, their chance of survival decreases.
Can you walk us through what you went through? I mean, describe for us getting there and what happened and what you were thinking and feeling.
For me, everything resorts back to training. Okay, unfortunately, we get great training here. That includes CPR, first aid training, And when you encounter a situation like that, your first reaction is to just render aid, provide care for the patient. You know, and you try not to, you know, as hard as it is sometimes to not get emotional when you've got family members there that are hysterical or upset, you've got to rely on your training. So, and that's what I did. You know, fortunately there were other people there who were also trained, okay, who had initiated CPR well before I even got there. You know, and like I said, it was because of their efforts that other efforts were as effective as they were.
Talk to us about that teamwork, I guess community members coming together.
Sure.
How important is that? And, you know, as someone in your position, sometimes you see the worst of the worst. I mean, is this a scenario where you saw the best in people coming together?
Absolutely. You know, we had 4 or 5, probably about 5 or 6 strangers, we'll say, people who had never met each other before. And, you know, I've been on other similar scene situations before where people back off, people back away, they don't know what to do, they don't want to hurt somebody. In this particular situation, everybody, it was like a puzzle. Each person represented a piece of that puzzle, and that puzzle just came together. Everybody had an active hand, active role in this incident.
Are you proud of your community?
I'm very proud of it, very proud. I mean, it's an honor to you know, we see a lot of negative people, and it's, you know, a lot of positive things as well, and this is just an example where, you know, I'm proud to be a part of it.
Can you take us through when you just take us through your personal view of the whole situation? You were on your way home, right?
Correct.
So you're on your way home, and then what? What happened? What time was it? What was it looking like?
It was about 8 minutes after 4. I was driving eastbound on Thrasher Avenue. I saw several vehicles parked off onto the side of the road. As I approached and got closer, I was flagged down by a couple of individuals, to include Mr. Dodge and Mr. Wagner. Flagged me down. I didn't know what was going on. I pulled over, and that was when I saw 2 individuals already engaged in CPR with the victim.
What did the victim look like when you actually got to him?
He was lying on the ground by the passenger side of the vehicle, clearly unresponsive. Clearly he wasn't breathing. He did not have a pulse.
So he was dead.
Yes.
I mean, technically he was dead.
Technically, yes.
How do you keep calm in that situation? How was everybody else keeping calm?
Again, everybody's there to support each other. No one person was there alone. And training, you know, there were 2 people on scene that were nurses. You know, who knows what they've experienced in their life, but they certainly knew what to do. You know, and Mr. Dodge and Mr. Wagner did an excellent job of communicating with dispatch and with me, and obtaining personal information, medical information, and of course, you know, the training that the Sheriff's Office provides me, being issued an AED, you know, makes it easier to handle that situation.
How long have you had the AED?
I've had the AED for probably about 7 years maybe.
7 years. How many times have you used it?
Never. This was the first.
What's it like to know that you have that tool that can literally bring someone back to life?
Well, knowing that we're given that opportunity to do that, you know, it's something that it would be great if, you know, if you know, every deputy had them, and, you know, we were able to deploy them all the time. But, you know, unfortunately, that's, you know, there's a good handful of us that have them, are trained in to use them, and you know, it's comforting knowing that I have that tool available to me. It's one of my many resources that I could use in a situation.
So you saw him struggling, and you just ran back to your car and just grabbed it. And did you advise somebody on how to work with you with it?
I grabbed it before I went to the patient. I saw that they were doing CPR, so it was evident that there was some kind of cardiac arrest. So I grabbed it prior to getting to the patient. When I arrived to the patient, I immediately started to deploy the AED, but the 2 people that were doing CPR, it was evident that they had been doing it for several minutes prior to my arrival. If you've never done CPR, it's, you know, it's very demanding. It really takes its toll on you just after a couple minutes, and they had been going at it for several minutes. Okay, so I relieved them, and I took over CPR, and I instructed, or guided, I should say, guided Mr. Wagner and Mr. Dodge in the deployment of the AED, and they were successfully able to attach the AED and deploy it.
How many hits did it take? How many times did it take to get him?
During the course of CPR that I was there, it shocked him twice. It delivered two shots.
And have you spoken to the victim since, or what's the condition of him now?
The last I was made aware is that he's currently recovering in the hospital.
You reach out to you at all or anything like that, or have you reached out to them?
No, right now the family's trying to cope with this very emotional time for the family. And I know they had some family that came down for this. So I want to certainly give them their space and their time to spend with their father, husband, loved one.
Was this an older individual? Do we know what age around?
He was approximately 63 years old.
63. From Hernando County?
Yes.
I do have a statement from Mrs.
Yeah, if I could have Mr. Dodge and Mr. Wagner come on up here, mentioned them several times. They could tell you much more what happened in the minutes leading up to my arrival. I'd like to turn it over to them.
Any questions?
Can we first get each of you to say and spell your name?
Yeah, my name is Don Wagner. It's D-O-N-W-A-G-N-E-R.
Jason Dodge, Jasondodge.
Guys, run us through it.
Well, we were actually on our way to, we had a bowling meeting we were going to at 6:30, and we left the house a little earlier. Well, I look at it as, God gave us the ability to leave a little bit earlier than we should have. We were there at the right time, the right place. We approached the lady who was on the side of the road, she waving her hand down. We just pulled over, helped out as best as we could. At that point, I was trying to get him to acknowledge if we were there, if he was okay. Jason actually took over the phone call with 911, this dispatch, so that I could help Suzanne, try to figure out what was going on. We were able to pull him out as they instructed, put him on the ground. As we did that, Jason was still on the phone with the dispatch at the time.
And they're walking you through what to do?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, she basically told Miss Ward to have us put him on the ground, flat on the ground, and open his airways as best as possible, which we did so. And then Miss Ward was obviously very upset, so she ended up just basically throwing her phone on the ground. And I picked it up and I was speaking with them, and they were just walking us through what they want us to do. And as they were walking us through what they would like us to do, I happened to see the deputy driving down the road. I didn't know if he was responding to the call or if he was, what he was doing. Obviously, he didn't have his lights on, so that's my first thought was he was just going home. But it was the best option we had at the time before the ambulance could get there.
And neither one of us, I've been trained in CPR, but it was years and years ago, and I didn't know exactly what to do at that moment. That's when I saw another truck coming down the road and pulled them off the side, and I asked if they knew CPR, and they both did. I know we keep saying that they were retired nurses, and that's the only thing that I got out of it, that they both were. And they immediately jumped in and started CPR, and that's when the officer came up with AED, and every kind of, he gets a little frantic, when you're doing that. Jason was mainly, consoling Suzanne, put her in our car at the time, try to give her some water and stuff, and could just console her. And the officer was the one that instructed me to, help out with the AED, which we did, and hopefully everything's going to turn out all right. We have visited the family over the last couple of days. They live around the corner. I just wanted to make sure everything's all right, and he's supposed to be getting, we're not sure exactly what state he's in yet. I don't know everything about it, but we have contacted him. So.
Does it make you reflect on your own life, seeing somebody go through something that's happened so sudden?
Well, definitely. We both our family just went through a death a couple of months ago, or 3 weeks ago. We went through it. And, it definitely makes you reflect on things. Our life is so short, when it comes down to that. That's why we obviously put our faith in God. We sat and prayed with Miss Suzanne Ward that day while we were there, trying to console her a little bit. And I'm a firm believer, everything happens for a reason. There's a reason we left a little early. That's the reason. We happen to be able to be pulled over and help somebody out.
We've heard about, people maybe just driving by, looking, and just keep going. What made you guys stop?
Well, at first when we saw her wave us down, I was actually just doing something on my phone, and I look at him and ask him why he's stopping. And he said that this lady's waving us down, and I thought she needed help with her vehicle. So I, kind of slowly get out of the car, not really rushing, and then all of a sudden I hear, he needs help. So that's when me and my stepfather ran as fast as we could over to her, and that's when she instructed us to, lay him on the ground. And he took a couple really, really big breaths, and after that, it was basically nothing. And that's when I was afraid that we were going to lose him, and that's basically when the deputy showed up.
We've never been against helping people out, and my wife and I, even in our business that we do, we're constantly helping people out all the time. It's just something I think that God has given me as a calling, and my wife and I as a calling to, just anytime anybody's in some kind of need, we try to help. That's just what we do. Obviously, we want the same thing. If something was happening to me, my wife couldn't help me out, I would hope somebody would be able to stop and help us out as well.
Got to bring you guys closer too, dealing with something so serious together, and kind of, like you said, it's big time teamwork with all of you guys, including the dispatcher who's on the phone with you at the time.
It has, it really has. Sometimes I get a little emotional about things like that, but it has. Yeah, it definitely has. It really has.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I heard you asking them about the dispatcher giving them information. We do use priority dispatch here, where when someone calls in with a medical emergency, our dispatchers are prepared to give the caller instructions on whatever the medical emergency is. If they're willing to provide medical assistance, we're prepared to provide that information, those directions, until the arrival of the paramedics. We call it 0-minute response time. So someone is providing life-saving techniques while fire rescue is en route. I do have a statement from Mrs. Suzanne Ward. She was unable to join us today because her husband is gravely ill. And this is directly from her. From what I've been told, 90% of people who suffer the type of heart attack my husband did don't even make it to the hospital alive. The people who stopped to help my husband gave his sons, brothers, and sister a chance to come and see him, hold him, and just be with him to say goodbye. Our family has a depth of gratitude for everyone who helped my husband, more than we can ever express. We just recently moved to Hernando County, and all the people here have been very supportive of our family. Sheriff Nienhuis would like to come up and say a few words.
First of all, I want to thank you all for coming out today and covering this, positive story. I'm very fortunate. I get to work with heroes, and they're usually reluctant to tell about what they did. They want to just do the job. But the perspective I want to bring to this is, even going home, most people in most professions get to decompress. Deputies don't have that luxury. They're driving a marked patrol car. They've got to be ready for anything, anytime. And I think people don't always think about the stress, not just on the calls that they're assigned to, but at any moment they have to be able to jump in, and really oftentimes the public expects them to be superhuman. They've got to be able to deal with any medical emergency that comes up, any law enforcement emergency, and frankly, anything that when somebody doesn't know what to do, they call on law enforcement. And I'm proud of Chris, the job he did, that he stopped and he was able to represent the agency well. And I think he would want me to say this. He's just one representative of well over 200 detention and actually over 300 detention and law enforcement deputies that would do the exact same thing. And we have a great group here and a great organization. I didn't really plan on speaking, but if you have any questions from my perspective, I'll be happy to answer them.
Sounds like it says a lot about the calling of a police officer. I mean,
What's that?
it sounds like it says a lot about the calling.
Yes, it is, and I don't, and my PIO Denise mentioned that even the comm center people, every time that phone rings, you have no idea what's on the other end, and in this case, they were able to jump in and handle it and provide instructions over the phone. It's hard enough to teach CPR in person. It's much harder over the phone. So they do a great job too, and I'm proud of the job they do because they're not allowed to make mistakes either. So anyway, but thank you all for coming.